Good morning, Namaskar. I am Arun Srivastav, Deputy Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India from New Delhi. On behalf of Ministry of Tourism, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all the guests who are connected today to this webinar from across the globe. मैं आप सभी का हार्दिक दिल से स्वागत करता हूं आज के वेबिनार में एंड दिस इज द 73rd webinar of the series देखो अपना देश by Ministry of Tourism, which started somewhere in April 2020. In fact, this is one of the I would say result of the COVID pandemic, where we were unable to travel physically to different places. So that is when the ministry thought of this idea, bringing the various tourism assets, features, and experiences to you, on your phone, on your laptop, on your computer. So once again, I would like to thank all of you for joining today's webinar. Now, before I introduce my guest, I would like to just quote few things which is relevant for today's webinar. In fact, in the history of India's struggle for freedom, one man stands out in all distinctiveness and a class by himself, in physique and mental constitution, in manner and lifestyle, in ideology and in action, and daring unmatched in the contemporary history of India as well as world. So this is the kind of personality we are talking about. It was way back on 5th July 1943. A slogan was coined by this great man, which is etched to the memories of all the Indians, all the nationals. तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा. Now you can realize whom I'm talking about. None other than our beloved Netaji. Netaji Subhas Chandra was such a charismatic leader of the free India, or I would say prior to freedom as well, and of course after freedom. The love what Indians had for him has not even gone down slightly. It was his call in 1943, where thousands and lakhs and millions of patriots India just went after him and joined the struggle of our freedom. So that was the charisma of our beloved Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. Today, we would be talking about his contribution to the whole freedom struggle. We will be discussing how Netaji was, as an exemplary leader to the Indian freedom struggle, how he formed INA, his struggle during INA, and the Indian freedom. That is what we will be discussing today. And we have today with us none other than Chandra Kumar Bose, son of Amya Nath Bose and Jyotsna Bose, grandson of Sarat Chandra Bose, and grandnephew of our beloved Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose himself. Mr. Chandra Kumar Bose has many feathers in his cap. He obtained his education, studied in UK for his postgraduate business management course, his certificate and other course in UK, in London, where he went to Birkbeck College, University of London. He studied in Kolkata, West Bengal. He started his career in 1982 as a management trainee with Tata Steel, and thereafter he grew many folds. After his internship in the training in Jamshedpur, he joined marketing and sales division of there itself, and thereafter was promoted as aerial sales manager at Tata Steel. His tenure at Tata Steel was till December 2000, a span of almost 2 decades. Chandra Kumar Bose started his own consultancy firm in human resource skill development named as Bose Information and Technology Private Limited in Kolkata. Bose Information and Technology Germany has partnered with IBM since 1998. The core area of work at this company is expertise in software development in the field of human resource development and skill. I would like to invite, in fact, before I'll invite Chandra Kumar Bose ji, I just want to add up that Shri Bose was the spokesperson and convener of the open platform for Netaji since 2012. He spearheaded the much awaited declassification of Netaji files movement, which gathered momentum not in India but otherwise globally as well. He is involved in the documentation and publication of the history of India's freedom struggle for the period, the most important period, I would say, that is from 1857 to 1947. With your permission, I would like to invite Shri Chandra Kumar Bose to take us to the journey of great Netaji. In next 40 minutes, we would be having some PowerPoint presentation as well, which would be shared with you on the screen. I would request my dear participant to post their queries on the chat box, whatever they would like to. So with these words, I thank again all my participants, all the viewers and audience across the globe, and invite, and I would like all of you to join me in inviting Shri Chandra Kumar Bose. Thank you. Over to you, Shri Bose.
Thank you, Arun Srivastava ji, and namaskar, and good morning to all the participants. We are here to discuss about a man who is known as the liberator of India, a man who was a visionary, a man who fought for India's freedom struggle and wanted political, economic, and social freedom for our nation. I would briefly go through the life and times of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. I would try to put forward his ideology, his principled politics that he played, his interaction with the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and his other colleagues of the independence movement, Mr. Nehru, Sardar Patel, Sarojini Naidu. But Subhash Chandra Bose, apart from being one of the premier freedom fighters of our nation, he is still very relevant in 21st century. That is the essence that I would like to bring forward. What is the relevance of the liberator of India, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose? Yeah, next slide. You see, Subhash Chandra Bose was the first Prime Minister, Minister of War of undivided, united India. You see, the battle for India's freedom started with the Sepoy uprising in 1857, the Mangal Pandey's movement, that was, according to me, the beginning of the freedom struggle. Right up to 1947, many people gave up their lives. People like Khudiram Bose, Shahid Bhagat Singh, Binoy Badol Dinesh, and many, many others whose names also we are not even aware. Then we had Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent movement, which had an impact on the masses of the India's, generation. But the final battle for India's freedom was the battle of the Azad Hind Fauj. As you are aware, Subhas Chandra Bose took over as the supreme commander of the Azad Hind Fauj, and on the 21st of October 1943, he established the provisional government of Azad Hind at Singapore, a government in exile, and launched and declared war against the British Empire and the Allied powers. Today, we are very happy to note that the Indian Army has adopted that famous tune that was composed by Ram Singh Thakure of the Azad Hind Fauj, the marching tune of the Azad Hind Fauj soldiers who marched from Burma to the frontiers of Imphal with the song on their lips, Kadam Kadam Badhaye Ja, Khushi Ka Geet Gaye Ja, Ye Zindagi Hai Qaum Ki, Ek Qaum Pe Lutaye Ja. With these marching tune, 60,000 soldiers of the Azad Hind Fauj marched towards Imphal in the frontier of India. And a chapter of history which is still missing from our history textbooks in schools and colleges. It was Colonel Shaukat Ali Malik of the Azad Hind Fauj who defeated the British Army on Indian soil for the first time. That was the historic day of 14th April 1944, when the Bahadur Brigade of the Azad Hind Fauj, with the leadership of Shaukat Ali Malik, drove the British out from Moirang and hoisted the Indian national flag at Moirang for the first time. That was, according to me, the Independence Day of India. For 3 months, the Azad Hind government was in governance in Moirang and half of Nagaland. The Azad Hind Fauj wanted to march on to the Red Fort. A lot of you may have heard Netaji's slogan, Chalo Dilli. Netaji had given instructions to the Azad Hind Fauj, the Bahadur Brigade, and to Shaukat Ali Malik that ab kadam kadam badhaye ja, you reach Lal Killa at the Red Fort and hoist the national flag. However, that was not possible because that time, as you know, Japan surrendered. Japan was giving support to the Azad Hind Fauj to fight the British. Japan had to surrender. Azad Hind Fauj had to retreat. And after that, you know, the atom bomb was dropped at Hiroshima, Nagasaki. So therefore, we could not proceed to the Red Fort. But another history which is distorted, the Azad Hind Fauj and Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose still today have not surrendered to the British. It was Japanese Imperial Army and Japan surrendered. But Azad Hind Fauj continued the battle for India's freedom. We must also understand another aspect. It was the impact of the Second World War. It was the dropping of the atom bomb, retreat of the Japanese army. But there was another seminal reason why the Azad Hind Fauj could not reach Delhi, Red Fort, in 1944. That time, it is very unfortunate, but it is a fact of history which must be known to the people of our generation, to the people of India, that the Congress leadership in 1944, who was sitting in Delhi, They had joined hands with the British and they opposed the Azadi Fauj and Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. This is also a fact of history which must be told. Now I would go through Subhash Chandra Bose's early life and education. Next slide. Yeah. You see, on 23rd January 1897, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was born in Cuttack in Odisha. His father was Janakinath Bose, mother was Prabhavati. They came from a fairly well-to-do family, not very rich, but well-to-do. Subhash was the sixth son and ninth child, and Janakinath Bose was a successful lawyer in Cuttack High Court. In 1902, Subhash's schooling started at the Protestant European School, and then he changed to the Ravenshaw Collegiate School. During this time, he was greatly influenced by the teachings of Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna Paramahansa. Swamiji's teachings had a great impact on Subhash Chandra Bose. You see, Swamiji's ideology of character building greatly influenced Subhash, and later in life, when Subhash formed the Azad Hind Fauj, Swamiji's character building he implemented in the Azad Hind Fauj. It had a disciplined army to fight the British. In 1913, he passed the matriculation examination, ranking second in the university. You see, Subhash was a brilliant student. He did not have to study much. He actually didn't get time to study much, especially his curriculum, because he read many other things apart from his curriculum. But he was very quick to grasp a subject, and he fared extremely well in the examinations. In 1920, Subhash sat for the civil service examination. It was an extremely difficult test to crack. It was a tough examination, and it was a 2-year full-time course that one had to study before appearing for the ICS exam. But Subhash did not have the time. He studied only for 8 months, and he stood fourth in the ICS exam. Probably if he would have got 2 years to study, he probably would have stood first. In 1921, Subhash qualified from Cambridge University. His subjects included a variety of subjects, if you see, English, Sanskrit, philosophy, English law, political science, modern European history, English history, economics, and geography. So even at the graduate level, he studied various subjects to get a proper grounding for his future career. But you know, after qualifying from Cambridge University, after getting into the ICS, ICS was a prize job in those days. If anyone would have passed the ICS, they couldn't even imagine to ever resign or leave. But Subhash Chandra Bose resigned from the ICS. He wrote to his father, Janakinath Bose, that I cannot serve two masters. My master is Bharat. My master is India. I cannot have another master, the British Empire. So I have to resign from the British civil service and plunge into the freedom movement. That was a man. You see, if you see Subhash Bose's later on in his life, he always took the difficult path. So my message to the youth of our nation, my message to the youngsters of our country, that don't always take the easy way out. Don't take the easy path. Subhash Chandra Bose took the difficult path, and that is why today we are remembering him. The whole nation is going to celebrate his 125th birth anniversary from 23rd January this year. So that was Subhash Bose. Now, he decided to come back to India after doing his studies, completing his studies, doing exceedingly well. He came back and he went and met Mahatma Gandhi in Mumbai. Gandhiji requested him to join the civil disobedience movement, the non-cooperation movement, and requested him to go to Kolkata and join the political life with Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das. You see, Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das, one could say, was Subhash Chandra Bose's political guru. You see, on one side, we had Swami Vivekananda as his spiritual guru, and on the other side, Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das, a stalwart in his own right, a national leader. He became his political guru and master. He joins the movement, he gets arrested. Many times Subhash got arrested. And if you see, he was kept in prisons where there were no facilities. We must also know that other leaders who used to go to prison, they used many facilities in the prison. They wanted a Western style toilet, they wanted newspapers, they wanted a good cup of hot tea. But Subhash Chandra Bose was interned and kept in prisons like Mandalay jail in Burma, Myanmar today. From October 1924 to May 1927, he was kept interned in Mandalay jail. And you know what Mandalay jail is? Mandalay jail was a torture chamber, like the cellular jail in Andamans. Mandalay jail was also a horrific place. But Subhash, because he was the number one enemy of the British Empire, the British realized that we cannot give him any comfort. We must put him in a jail where he is mentally and physically tortured. So that was the treatment that British gave to the number one enemy of the empire, the liberator of India. Now, Calcutta Congress was held in 1928, and Subhash Chandra Bose decided to establish a uniform cadet corps. You see, Subhash from the beginning was, although he did not have formal military training, but he always had this disciplined military feeling in himself. And Gandhiji was not very supportive of this uniform cadet corps that he formed. And I would tell you from what I've learned from my father, Amyonath Bose, who was extremely close to his uncle Subhash. In fact, they shared the same bedroom for almost 6 years in Calcutta. And here what I heard from my father, Subhash Chandra Bose, dressed in his uniform as the commander of the uniformed cadet corps, was coming down the stairs of our One Woodburn Park house in Calcutta. In fact, One Woodburn Park house in Calcutta is a historic place. It is a museum now, Sarat Bose Museum, named after my grandfather. Congress sessions were held there. Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Nehru, they have all resided in our ancestral house at One Woodburn Park, Calcutta. And when Subhash was coming down the stairs, dressed in his uniform, his father, my great-grandfather, Janakinath Bose said, "Subhash, I hope you will be the Garibaldi of India." And later on in life, Subhash proved to be the Garibaldi of India. I thought, and my father also thought, that what Janakinath Bose told his son was rather prophetic. In 1938, the historic year where Subhash Chandra Bose became the first president, elected president of the Indian National Congress. Now, I must explain, the Indian National Congress in those days wasn't a political party. It was a platform to fight for India's freedom. And all leaders of that era were part of this Congress platform to fight for freedom. My grandfather, Sarat Chandra Bose, was also a Congress leader. In fact, he served the Congress lot more than Subhash, his younger brother. My grandfather Sarad Bose was in the Congress for 42 long years. Later on, of course, he resigned because he opposed the partition of India and partition of Bengal. 1939, he again became consecutive 2 years. Subhash Bose was again elected the Congress president. Here I must also state that Mahatma Gandhi, who was very fond of Subhash Chandra Bose, that is also a fact. And Subhash also respected Mahatma Gandhi immensely. Today we call Mahatma Gandhi the father of the nation. It was Subhash Chandra Bose who addressed Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, for the first time from Southeast Asia when he was leading the Azadi Fauj against the British forces. This was Subhash Bose who called. Many of us are not aware of that. And Mahatma Gandhi also reciprocated the feelings by addressing and naming Subhash Bose as the Prince of Patriots, as the Patriot of Patriots. So that is why a lot of us celebrate 23rd January as Patriots Day, because Mahatma Gandhi had addressed Subhash Bose as Patriot of Patriots. But there were differences, ideological differences with Mahatma Gandhi, with Mr. Nehru. Subhash believed that a non-violent struggle, a non-violent movement cannot bring about freedom for our country. The might of the British Empire cannot be broken, cannot be driven out of India by a non-violent struggle. He believed in an armed struggle to drive out the British. So his leaving and resigning from the Congress presidentship was not only because of differences with Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru. His main objective was, in order to drive out the British, you need to form an army, you must have an armed struggle. That is why he resigned and formed the forward bloc within the Congress first, and later on as a political forum outside the Congress. Now, Subhash Chandra Bose's, focus to achieve freedom was the same focus like Arjuna of Mahabharata. You see, Arjuna, when he was asked to pierce the eye of the fish, which was rotating, he was asked that, what are you looking at? So Arjuna had said, I'm looking at nothing else except the eye of the fish, which I would pierce with my bow and arrow. Netaji's focus for India's freedom was Arjuna's focus. He was not looking at anything else. His main focus was freedom for our motherland. And that is how, on the 17th of January 1941, Subhash Chandra Bose left his Calcutta residence, left on a journey. He never knew that he would probably never come back. He knew that he might be assassinated on his way by the British forces. And Britain had actually planned. Intelligence reports we have found now, which has been declassified, that there were instructions by the British government to the British armed forces that moment Subhash Chandra Bose crosses the borders of India, he should be assassinated. But they could not. They could not really get hold of Subhash Chandra Bose. He went through from Kolkata, he went to Gomo by car. And from Gomo, he took the Delhi Kalka mail, he went to Peshawar. From Peshawar, he went to Kabul. From Kabul, again, there was a threat on his life. Then from Kabul, he reached Moscow, from Moscow to Berlin. This kind of journey, many find it very adventurous. Subhash Chandra Bose was a very adventurous person as well. So he liked adventure, but a man who feared nothing, a man who knew that he has to achieve freedom for our nation. That was his goal. He arrives in Berlin, tries to meet He tries to get appointment with the Führer. It was very difficult. You see, he probably never liked Adolf Hitler, but his goal was my enemy's enemy is my friend. So he adopted this concept, which worked because to really fight the might of the British Empire during the Second World War, it was Germany as a nation and Adolf Hitler as the Führer who could challenge the British Empire. So he took his help. But I must say, Subhash Chandra Bose's discussion he had with Adolf Hitler was on his own terms. Do you know he had the courage to tell Hitler that you have written a book, Mein Kampf. Many of you might have read the autobiography of Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf. And in that book, he had written some insulting and derogatory remarks he had made about fellow Indians. Subhash Chandra Bose clearly told Adolf Hitler that, Herr Hitler, Mr. Hitler, you have no idea of the rich history and heritage and culture of India, of Bharat. First, you must understand the concept of Bharat. Then only you can make a comment on fellow Indians. Please delete what you have written about India without understanding the heritage of India. And Hitler appreciated what he was told. Hitler could have just shot him. You just needed one bullet to eliminate Subhash Bose. But he realized that Subhash was a man who was a patriotic person, a man who has ventured out of his country to fight for his freedom, to fight for his country's freedom. Therefore, Hitler gave him that respect. But Hitler advised him that it would be very difficult to attack the British Empire from Germany. So he suggested that you must go to Southeast Asia. And from Southeast Asia, you raise your army and you launch the battle for India's freedom. And I think that strategy was correct. And Hitler gave Subhash Bose this submarine, that historic journey that he undertook, 90-day submarine journey during the Second World War. Torpedoes tried to hit 2 or 3 times, but something about Subhash, the strength that he had, the mental strength that he had, made him continue. So he established the Indian Legion with the prisoners of war fighting against, on the British side, who came over to the Indian National Army, Azadi Hind Fauj side, and he continued the battle. I would give you a story which is written by the captain of the German submarine. After this 90 days journey, Subhash Bose, along with Abid Hassan of the Azad Hind Fauj, he was his companion in this 90-day long submarine journey. And this captain of the German submarine writes that when we reached the coast of Madagascar, Subhash had to be transferred to a Japanese submarine. But the coast of Madagascar was very rough. The sea is extremely rough. There were 30 to 40 feet high tidal waves. So the 2 submarines could not come close. If they came close, they would hit and collapse and sink. So the German captain told Subhash that, see, my Führer has asked me to reach you to coast of Madagascar, but he has not given me the instruction to die. Because if I go close to the Japanese submarine, we would both clash and die. So let us go back to Germany. You know what Subhash told him? That I have come all this way not to go back to Germany. I have come all this way to continue the battle for freedom of my motherland. So the German captain thought that this man is mad. How can he reach the Japanese submarine? So he said, okay, there is one way you could do that. I will give you a small rubber boat, a small rubber raft. You can go into that and try and cross over to the Japanese submarine. The captain writes in his book that I was sure that both Abid Hassan and Subhash would die. But he gave the boat, and Subhash got into the rubber raft along with Abid Hassan and tried to reach the Japanese submarine. The German captain could see the raft rising with the waves and then sinking deep into the sea. He knew they would die, but they did not die. Something, some strength, the spiritual strength that he had from the teachings of Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna Paramahansa made him reach the Japanese submarine to continue the battle for India's freedom. That was the strength of mind of Subhash Chandra Bose. Yeah, next. Now, as you know, once he reached Southeast Asia, the Azad Hind Fauj was formed and established by another great national icon, Rash Bihari Bose. You see, Subhash Bose did not establish the Azad Hind Fauj. It was Rash Bihari Bose and Captain Mohan Singh who formed the Azad Hind Fauj, but there were only 20,000 soldiers at that time. Subhash Bose, when he took over as the supreme commander of the Azad Hind Fauj, enhanced it to 65,000. So that is what Subhash Bose did to Azad Hind Fauj. He made it a trained army to combat the British forces. Now, the springing tiger, the Indian flag, you see what the flag that was adopted by the Indian National Army and the Azad Hind Fauj was the Indian tricolor with a springing tiger in the center. Later on, it was replaced by the Ashok Chakra, as you know. Now, Janagana Mana, Janagana Mana, the national anthem, which was, of course, composed by Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore, but Subhash Chandra Bose actually had accepted it as the national anthem, which was born not in India. It was born in Hamburg, in Germany. In Hamburg, this anthem was played and the tune was given, which Subhash Bose acknowledged and accepted. Jai Hind, as you know, Jai Hind became a universal greeting. You see, just coining this greeting, Jai Hind, Subhash Bose united all communities. You see, earlier what happened in the Azad Hind Fauj, people used to say good morning, people used to say adab, people used to say namaste. So Subhash said that if you greet people with different, expression, you cannot unite the force. So he coined Jai Hind, and everybody in the Azad Hind Fauj greeted each other with this Jai Hind slogan. And today, we are happy to note that in the Indian Army and in the Indian Armed Forces, Jai Hind is the greeting. Now, 8th February is that historic day, 1943. The German submarine drops Subhash Bose at the coast of Madagascar. He crosses over and he reaches Singapore to take charge of the Azad Hind Fauj and Indian National Army. I have already stated to you that this journey was the most daring journey in the history that we can remember, undertaken during the so difficult conditions of the Second World War. This is a picture of the submarine. Next. October 21, 1943, historic day. Subhash Chandra Bose establishes the provisional government of Azad Hind and he becomes the supreme commander of the Indian National Army. 22nd March 1944. These are days, events which are not available in history textbooks. I have requested the Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, that we must rewrite, we must set straight the history of our freedom struggle, right from 1857 to 1947. There are so many gaps. There are so many incidents which have been obliterated completely from our history textbooks. I think we would do a great harm to the future generations if we don't tell them the true history of our freedom movement. And it is not only Subhas Chandra Bose and the Azadi Fauj, it is also the contribution of martyrs like Shahid Bhagat Singh, like Khudiram Bose, like Binoy Badol Dinesh, Mangal Pandey. All these people must be given a place in the history textbooks, and these textbooks should be prescribed in schools and colleges. I think a survey is being done by the Book Trust of India and the NCERT, who are in charge of these textbooks, and I'm sure very soon the history would be told to the future generations. So 14th April, I've already mentioned in my introduction that 14th April 1944, the Indian National Army, with the leadership of Shaukat Ali Malik, hoisted the flag on Indian soil for the first time at Moirang in Manipur state. There is a museum in Moirang. I had the privilege of going there. Some of you, if you get an opportunity, you must visit this place, Moirang. People of Manipur, if you talk to them about Subhash Chandra Bose, it is as if they have seen him and they have interacted with him. They get so emotional talking about the heroic battle of the Azad Hind Fauj and the contribution of all these soldiers whose names also we are not aware. We are trying to compile a list of all the martyrs. 26,000 soldiers sacrificed their lives in the Indian National Army. Out of 60,000, 26,000 means almost 44% were martyred. This is the highest heroic battle. This is the highest contribution. No army has sacrificed to this extent. See, a lot of people say that, okay, it was a heroic battle, but the INA actually lost the battle. Yes, British historians have stated the INA lost the battle against the Allied powers, against the British Empire, but won the war. INA lost the battle but won the war. You see, Subhash Chandra Bose realized that 12 lakh soldiers were there in the British armed forces, British Indian Army. Out of that, only 40,000 were actually British. The rest were all Bharatiyas. Rest were all Indians. So Netaji realized this was a psychological impact which he could visualize, and it happened. He realized that when my own brothers and sisters would see that they are fighting against fellow Indians, they are fighting against Bharatiyas, they would revolt. They would not fight against their own brethren. They would not fight against their own countrymen. And that's exactly what happened. Subsequently, after the INA battle, INA trials were held at the Red Fort in Delhi in early 1946. And do you know what happened? 3 army officers were tried for high treason at the Red Fort. There are barracks which has been converted into a museum now. You should go and see it at the Red Fort. And there, 3 officers. One was a Muslim, Shahnawaz Khan. Second was a Hindu, Prem Kumar Saigal. And the third was Sikh, Gurbakh Singh Dhillon. So those days there was a saying, Lal Kille se aaye awaaz, Dhillon, Saigal or Shahnawaz. When this news spread that 3 generals of the army, Indian National Army, were being tried at the Red Fort, the entire British army, the Indian component, the Indians in the British army revolted. There was a naval mutiny. In Mumbai, there was a naval mutiny. 78 ships, they revolted against the British Empire. Right from Karachi to Calcutta to Mumbai, people revolted. They came out on the streets with Subhas Chandra Bose's portrait and said, Jai Hind, British go back. British army opened fire. People stopped for a while, but then again they moved on. It was Jallianwala Bagh, if you notice. They got trapped in a particular area where they couldn't escape. They were all shot dead. But here, it was open streets, and huge number of people with Netaji's photograph went running saying Jai Hind and Britain go back, British go back. So you must realize why Britain leave India. You see, I am not trying to say that Azadi Fauj was the only reason. It was the final onslaught. That is what we have to realize. Everybody contributed, right from the Sepoy uprising of Mangal Pandey to Bhagat Singh and so many people who went to the gallows, sacrificed their lives, to Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent movement. But all these movements could not shake the British Empire. The only final onslaught on British imperialist power was the Battle of the Azadi Fauj. And these are not my words. These are words of Lord Clement Attlee. Who was Lord Attlee? Lord Attlee was the Prime Minister of Great Britain in 1947, who signed the transfer of power documents. He came to Calcutta in 1956, and he was staying at the Raj Bhavan with the then acting governor of Bengal, Justice Phanibhushan Chakravarti. Justice Chakravarti asked over dinner to Lord Clement Attlee, what made you leave India? Because after all, the Second World War, you actually won. The Allied powers, British, they were part of the Allied force. The Allied powers actually won the Second World War. So if you win a war, why should you leave your empire and run away? So Lord Attlee said, that was it. You see, Justice Phanibhushan Chakravarti asked a very specific question. That what made you leave India? Was it Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent movement? Or was it something else? So Clement Attlee, he used to smoke a pipe. He chewed on his pipe and he softly said that Mahatma Gandhi's, with due respects to Mahatma Gandhi, he was the father of the nation. Netaji had great respect for him. We as a family, we as Bharatiyas, we respect Mahatma Gandhi. But these are Clement Attlee's words. Clement Attlee clearly said, Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent movement had MINIMAL effect, minimal effect. So then the governor, Justice Chakravarti, was very surprised. And he said, then what made you leave India? Then came the reply. It was the Indian National Army, the Azadi Fauj, and Subhas Chandra Bose, which made us leave India. So this is the truth, that after so many years, the truth is surfacing. And this was corroborated again. My father, Amyanath Bose, and my elder brother, Surya Bose, they stay in Germany. My Surya stays in Hamburg. They sought for an appointment with Lord Louis Mountbatten, who was the last Viceroy of India. This was in 1976. As you know, in 1979, Louis Mountbatten was assassinated by an IRA bomb blast. But in 76, he met my father, Amyanath Bose, in England. My father asked him a very straight question, that Lord Mountbatten, what made you leave India? The same question that Justice Phanibhushan Chakravarti had asked Lord Clement Attlee, he asked Mountbatten. And Mountbatten's reply was very, very specific. It was the Indian National Army and your uncle Subhash Chandra Bose who made us leave India. We don't need any further confirmation from any quarters. The Prime Minister of Great Britain has confirmed, who signed the transfer of power documents, and Lord Mountbatten, who was the Viceroy of India. So there is a famous quote from Michael Edwards, which you must know, the younger generation must know. He compares it with Hamlet's father. it slowly dawned upon the government of India, the British government of India, that the backbone of British rule, the Indian army, might no longer be trustworthy. The ghost of Subhash Bose, like Hamlet's father, walked the battlements of the Red Fort, and his suddenly amplified figure overawed the conferences that were to lead to independence. One of the most brilliant historians of the British Empire, Michael Edwards, has very aptly stated what made them leave India. Now, Netaji's ideology for the future of India. You see, Subhash Chandra Bose was not only the liberator of India, was not only the hero of Asia. You see, he was known as the hero of Asia in Japan. Mamoru Shigemitsu, who was the foreign minister and deputy prime minister of Japan, had written to my father. You see, my father wrote a letter to Mamoru Shigemitsu in 1956 that I am coming to Japan and I would like to meet you. Mamoru wrote back, handwritten note. I have the letter with me, the original. Wrote a letter to my father saying that I am so happy to receive a letter from a person who we respected so much, from a person who was, I'm so happy to receive a letter from the nephew of the hero of Asia, Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. This is what he was known as. So Netaji's activities were beyond the shores of India. He was known as the hero of Asia. He influenced and inspired all nations in Asia who were fighting for their own country's freedom. So this is what we have to understand, the towering personality that Subhash Chandra Bose had. He was a reader. He read many world thinkers. He read about the life and times of Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Aurobindo. He read about Lenin. He read about Marx. He need not follow their ideology, but he knew so much about world politics. You see, this is another message to our political fraternity today, that you must, broaden your horizon. You must read about all thinkers. You must gather knowledge. Then only you can form your own ideology, what is good for India. See, Subhash Chandra Bose realized that we cannot import any ideology from foreign land and thrust it on Indian soil. That is why he wanted Indian way of socialism. That is what he wanted, where he wanted an egalitarian society, equality for all. This is what Subhash Bose stood for. You see, Subhash Bose, we must realize, his British bosses startled to hear the employees refer to Subhash Chandra Bose. He was, demonized in the English press, George Washington of India, with his photos in the INA officer's uniform. See, today you must realize, what did this man stand for? In the Azadi Fauj, he united all communities, he united all caste and creed, and established them as Bharatiyas. This is extremely relevant in today's India. In the Azadi Fauj, there was not a single Hindu, there was not a single Muslim, there was not a single Sikh. Then who are these 60,000 soldiers in the Azadi Fauj? They were only Bharatiyas. I think this concept of India, this concept of Bharat, Subhash Bose could implement in his Azadi Fauj. Today in India, we find there are a lot of divisive forces at play. There are a lot of people who are trying to break the nation. I think we need to adopt Subhash Chandra Bose's ideology of inclusive politics, inclusive ideology, to unite all nations, all religions, all caste and creed as one, as Bharatiyas. This is the relevance of Subhash Chandra Bose in 21st century. And I think building a museum, constructing a statue is okay, but you cannot restrict the dynamism of Subhash Chandra Bose. You cannot restrict the towering personality of Subhash Chandra Bose within the four walls of a museum or in a erecting and unveiling a statue of Subhash Chandra Bose. The real honor and respect we can pay to Subhash Chandra Bose is to adopt his inclusive ideology. India is a nation. We are a diverse nation. There is unity through diversity, and Subhash Bose practiced it to the letter. Today, many of us, we give speeches, we talk, we make statements. I really appreciate Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's statement, "Sabke saath, sabke vikas, sabke saath, sabke vishwas." This is entirely based on the ideology of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. But we need to implement it. We have to implement it on the ground. Now, Netaji, his main objective, he wanted political, social, and economic freedom. We have probably attained political freedom, although we did not get Purna Swaraj. You see, everybody wanted to fight for undivided India with complete independence. But unfortunately, we only got dominion status on the 15th of August 1947. And we did not get Purna Swaraj, and we did not get united India. We got divided dominion of India. So Subhash Chandra Bose was the Prime Minister of undivided India, and Mr. Nehru, with due respect to him, was the first Prime Minister of divided dominion of India. Both were first, but the difference is one was first as far as undivided united India is concerned, and the other was first for a divided dominion of India is concerned. So this historic correction also needs to be done. And I think I have already made my submissions to the government of India that these corrections should be done so that future generations, they don't confuse the issue. They know the true history. The other thing that Subhash did is status to women. Today we all talk about women's empowerment, emancipation, but it is all talk. Do we do it on the ground? Subhash Chandra Bose established Rani of Jhansi Regiment, and women were given equal status in the Indian National Army to fight for India's freedom. So there is a saying that in the Azadi Fauj, everybody was equal. Women, all communities, men, they ate together, slept together, fought together for India's freedom. That is the concept that Subhash Chandra Bose had adopted. And I think if in today's India, we can have this kind of ideology, India would be able to progress. You know, unless there is unity, there cannot be progress. Unless we have an egalitarian society, India cannot progress. So this environment is essential for the future of India. Yeah, he had a secular attitude. He was a very spiritual person. He was a Kali Bhakt. He used to go to Dakshineshwar Kali temple and pray through the night when he was disturbed. But Subhash Bose never mixed up religion with politics. You know, I must also say what I've heard from my father. What made Subhash Chandra Bose stand out as a leader? It was his refusal to use religious symbols for political purposes. We should not. We respect all religions. We are impartial towards all religions, but it should not be mixed up with the public life or in politics today, because that is a dangerous trend. Because India is a diverse country. We have to stand for all communities. That is the concept we must follow. I've already said about women's empowerment, education. Subhash Chandra Bose really thought that education is essential, and every person, every individual must get exposure to education. This is a serious issue in our country. We are not able to extend education to all. He had studied the concept from Germany and Scandinavian countries of nursery school. They have a very good system of kindergarten schooling. We must also implement that. Some development has taken place in the arena of education in our country, but I think we are still a far cry away from what Subhash Chandra Bose dreamt of, a free India. Netaji's ideology, as far as economic aspects are concerned, he wanted a comprehensive scheme for gradually socializing our entire agriculture and industrial system in the spheres of both production and distribution. You see, India primarily was an agrarian society. So we should have stabilized, we should have, be self-sufficient on agriculture first before going in for a thrust in industrialization. But what happened is when we started off in 47, major thrust was given for industrialization, but I think we neglected agricultural sector. And that is why we had a lopsided economy for many, many years. We are now trying to stabilize, but if we would have followed Subhash's method, I think we would have been probably a country, probably like Singapore. That Singapore, of course, is a very small country, but the kind of progress that they have made, India would have been very progressive if we would have adopted the methods that Subhash Bose has suggested. All of you must read the suggestions Subhash Bose gave in his working. He had formed in 1938 this planning committee. Subhash Bose formed the first planning committee of India in 1938. And he made Mr. Nehru the chairperson of that committee. So inclusive he was. In spite of having political differences with Nehru, he decided to make him the chairman of this committee to really work for the country. And in that, he had really worked out what India would look 100 years after independence. So he was a visionary who thought of India after freedom. You see, everybody fought for freedom. But after freedom, what is going to happen to India? How India would shape up economically? No one really gave much thought. Netaji has thought. You must read. There is available on the internet. There is a file, Madhu Dandavate, on Netaji's planning committee. I think there is, you can get onto a site and you will see the suggestions. We can't discuss in detail about the planning committee suggestions, but briefly I will tell you. But if you can have access to this on the internet, Madhu Dandavate's, Subhash Chandra Bose's planning committee, you will get an in-depth knowledge as to the visionary that Subhash Chandra Bose was. Political concepts, I have already covered this. He was a nationalist to the core. More than being a nationalist, he was a patriot. He was patriotic to the core. He was totally democratic. He believed in a democratic system. We find across the world, democracy is being questioned. Democracy at times is failing, but he thought we must have democracy. People should have a right to elect. Everybody should have a, it's basic right of an individual to elect your government. At times, people are not allowed to vote in our country. What we saw recently in the United States, it is condemnable. It should not have happened. But anyway, they have, I think, overcome the issue. And we have a democratic government in place in the United States, which is supposed to be one of the oldest democracies in the world. Women are still suffering from exploitation, disadvantages in certain parts of the country. We have a patriarchal society, a system where women are completely suppressed. Subhash Chandra Bose was completely against this kind of attitude. He wanted women to rise up. He wanted women to come up in society and have equal status with men. Yeah. Well, this is the national movement. I don't want to go into this. It will take a lot of time. But where I would like to tell you, basically today we are talking about Subhash Bose and how his ideology and principles would benefit India presently and in the future. So that is what I would like to now tell you before I end. Yeah, reality is, after all, too big for our frail understanding to fully comprehend. Nevertheless, we have to build our life on the theory which contains the maximum truth. We cannot sit still because we cannot or do not know the absolute truth. Now, I would like to quickly go through. I have made a gist of Subhash Bose in 21st century, his contribution. The role of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose played in India's independence struggle has been much discussed. We have discussed today also. But there are today several good books written about him and the role of Indian National Army by both Indian and foreign scholars. Many more new studies are being published today. But I would tell you, you must read two definitive books which are written by Subhash Chandra Bose himself. See, the point is, many books have been written on Subhash Chandra Bose with different interpretations, but in order to understand Subhash, his thought, his attitude, his ideology, you must read his own writings. Number one, The Indian Struggle. You must read The Indian Struggle, written by Subhash Bose. The book is available. And number two, The Indian Pilgrim. The Indian Pilgrim. These are two books which are a must if you want to understand and know about Subhash Chandra Bose. Today, we welcome this development that awareness of Subhash Chandra Bose among the youth is again rising. But the point I would like to raise today is that the existing studies on Netaji, while focusing on his role in our freedom movement, do not pay adequate attention to Netaji's own ideas and the new India he had envisioned. Very few, if any, among our independence leaders had thought, again with due respects to all, had thought and planned about the political system, the economy, and the social structure that independent India should strive towards. Netaji had, in fact, put forward a blueprint for India of the future in his famous Haripura address. Apart from reading what he has stated in the Planning Committee in 1938, everyone should read. It is available on the net. Netaji's Haripura Congress address as President of the Indian National Congress. This was again in 1938. At the Haripura Congress session, Subhash Bose, as the president, spelled out the fundamental rights of the people of India, rights that every citizen of India would enjoy once India was free of British rule. I would like to mention a few of those rights. Every citizen of India has the right of free expression of opinion, the right of free association and combination, and the right to assemble peacefully and without arms for a purpose not opposed to law or morality. You know, my grandfather had stated, Sarat Chandra Bose, which is very relevant again today. What is morally wrong cannot be politically right. This is something which we must think about. Every citizen shall enjoy freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess and practice his religion, subject to the public order and morality. The culture, language, and script of the minorities and of the different linguistic areas shall be protected. Every citizen has equal rights before the law, irrespective of religion, caste, or sex. At Haripura, that is more than 8 decades ago, Netaji had also set out a plan for reconstruction once India had attained her freedom. And he said, regarding reconstruction, our principal problem will be how to eradicate poverty from our country. Even after so many decades, we are still not able to eradicate poverty in our country. That many years ago, Netaji had warned that our main problems after independence would be poverty, illiteracy, and disease. Netaji had thought of everything, including the importance of India's foreign relations. He talked of developing international contacts by Indian cultural organizations and by Indian chambers of commerce to raise India's profile across the globe. He emphasized that free India would be a positive force in the world. You may be surprised to know that as far back as 1928, when India was in the throngs of British colonial rule, Subhash Chandra Bose was thinking of democracy as the political framework for free India. Let me quote what he said in his presidential address at the Maharashtra Provincial Conference in Pune on 3rd May 1928. Democracy is by no means a Western institution. It is a human institution. Wherever man has attempted to evolve political institutions, he has hit upon the wonderful institution of democracy. The past history of India is replete with instances of democratic institutions. He went on to say, among the Khasis of Assam, for instance, it is still the custom to elect the ruling chief by a vote of the whole clan. And this custom has been handed down from time immemorial. The principle of democracy was also applied in India in the government of villages and towns. So democracy is not a foreign concept. Democracy is an Indian concept, Subhash Chandra Bose had stated. I would finish before some summation. I would like to add, today when we find democracy in crisis in many parts of the world, we need to remind ourselves of the faith that Netaji placed in democracy. Democracy is not a perfect system, but it is certainly the best available system. Just 2 days ago, we witnessed the triumph of democracy and the will of the people in the United States of America. Through the power of the vote, the people of America removed a president who governed through his early morning tweets, challenged the advice and warnings of his own scientists about the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in rising death tolls, reaching more than 400,000, opposed to international community's efforts to address the climate crisis, just to mention a few. We must, of course, admit that the smooth functioning of democracy demands certain prerequisites. For example, to begin with, we need an electoral system that allows voting to take place in a secure and transparent way. We need a multi-party system which will ensure against the installation of a one-party functioning legislature and a genuinely independent judiciary. In short, we need an effective checks and balances system among the executive, legislature, and judiciary. I would urge anyone interested to learn more about Netaji's vision, plans, and programs for independent India to read his many speeches and writings covering 2 decades from the early 1920s until he left India in January 1941. I would like to place before you what Netaji had stated many decades ago in 1928. If we want to make India really great, we must build up a political democracy on the pedestal of a democratic society. Privileges based on birth, caste, or creed should go, and equal opportunities should be thrown open to all, irrespective of caste, creed, or religion. The status of women should also be raised, and women should be trained to take larger and a more intelligent interest in public affairs. The relevance of Netaji in the 21st century is in many ways self-evident. The problems that he wanted to address so many decades ago remain with us till today. We are still faced with extreme poverty, illiteracy, and disease. If we want to pay homage to Netaji, we need to rededicate ourselves to meeting these challenges. It is not enough to simply remember him on his birth anniversary and ignore all that he wanted to be, wanted India to be. Thank you very much for giving a patient hearing. I'm sorry, I think I've exceeded my time. Thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Not at all, sir. Thank you so much. And wasn't viewer, it was a wonderful insight in the life of our beloved Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. The contribution that he made to Indian national movement, to know about the pages from the history and what is his ideology, what Netaji actually thought of India once we gain freedom, what kind of society, what kind of country he wanted us to be. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much for taking us through this wonderful journey. And as sir was mentioning, from the tourist point of view, there are certain places where we would like to go and experience the life of Netaji and his ideology. One such place is this INA Museum, which ASI has just done up. It is a
Correct.
wonderful place in Delhi. So viewers, please do take time and go and visit Red Fort. And there's a series of museum. Among them, this is the INA Museum. Another thing which sir has mentioned is about Moirang in Manipur. I've been there, and it's a wonderful feeling when you go and see the Indian flag there. There is a small INA museum, but it's a wonderful experience. So once again, on behalf of Ministry of Tourism, sir, and a very a big thank you to us for joining us today and giving us such a wonderful insight in our history and the life of Netaji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.